Welcome back, guys, to another episode of our Driver Focus. We are joined by Race Choice sponsored driver, also a contest winner in March of last year, Chris Golden, joining us from Oklahoma. Thanks, Chris, for letting us do this interview today. Of course, joined by Andrew Moeller as well.
I'm happy to be here with you, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get into it. Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into racing. I know we've been talking throughout this past race season, so finally nice to formally introduce ourselves and talk to you a little bit today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's something I've wanted to do since I was a kid, just like anybody else. I remember being 8 years old, sitting in the stands at our local dirt track there with my grandpa, who actually raised me. He adopted me when I was 4 years old, and sitting there when I was 8 years old, and I basically told him, like, you know what? I know we can't afford it now, but one day I'm going to do that. And then fast forward 20 years, I was able to purchase my first dirt track car, and it's taken off from there.
No, that's a cool story, too. I mean, you talked about your grandfather, how you guys got into it a little bit. How much of an inspiration was he for you, to get into that? And, what kind of level of racing did you start racing in kind of when you got into it?
I started in dirt track racing here in Oklahoma when I was 28. He was the biggest influence in not just in racing, but in my entire life. He never raced. He worked construction his entire life, Army Corps of Engineers, things like that. Actually built the dam on Toledo Bend Lake. Did tons and tons of things. Worked on the NASA Space Simulation Chamber. Tons of things throughout his life, but racing was just never one of them. He was always just a fan. And I wanted to be more than a fan, but he was always my driving force. Everything that I did in my life was to hear him say, "Hey, you did so good. I'm proud. I'm so proud of you." And of course, we lost him I believe it's been 3 years now. And it was a weird transition from everything I do that I did to hear those words. Now I'm on the other side of that. Like I have to be that patriarch. I have to be that calming voice and that person who makes my son and my family strive to reach those heights. And now with racing, I started running I believe it was the IMCA Sport Mod division, but it was just a class division. It was a class for just rookies. They call it the intermediate sport mods. And I ran that my first year. Then I jumped on full bore into the USRA Limited Modifieds and the IMCA Southern Sport Mods, and I've kind of jumped back and forth between those. It's essentially the same car, just two different sanctioning bodies. But I really focused hardcore on USRA this last season. I ended up 13th in national points out of about 480, I believe.
That's awesome.
So I can't really complain. Can't complain too much. It was a pretty successful year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, just by the start of it, the first two questions, you really seem to be enthusiastic about your racing career thus far. Really cool to see. I know me and Andrew have talked to a lot of people in the past couple months. So kind of yours is definitely a different story, wouldn't you say, Andrew? So
no, it's definitely cool to hear everyone's different stories during this driver focus that we're doing here on YouTube. So definitely cool to hear that side of the story. So talk about 2022, how that season went for you. What you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, and everything in between.
Well, I was actually able to get a brand new chassis. It's the first time in my entire career I've had anything that was new. I've always had hand-me-down stuff that I bought from other people that they had ran and been done with. And this car, a gentleman up in Kansas, actually follows my racing career. He was a racer himself, and he built the car 2 years ago. And they ran it 5 nights. It was essentially a brand new car, and they had parked it because they had cut the class at his local track. And he sent me a message on Facebook and actually said, "Hey, do you want this car?" I was like, "Dude, I would love to have that car, but I can't afford that. New cars are out of my price range." And he goes, No, you don't understand. Do you want this car?" And I was like, "Sure." He goes, "Okay, cool. Come up to Kansas and pick it up." So I went up there and I put my little 602 crate engine in it. It was amazing. It's the first time I've ever had anything new, and it was unreal. Had a ton of people jump in to help out this year as far as 2022 goes. It was unreal. It was really, really surreal because I didn't plan on running for points. I was just trying to learn still. It was only my 4th complete season that I ran, where I ran 20 events or more, and it was a weird feeling because I'm watching myself slowly climb up the national point standings there with USRA, and then I look up and I'm 9th in the nation. So I was like, wow, that's kind of a high point in my career. I've never been top 10 in anything in the nation. And So I would have to say that would be the high point. It's definitely looking at what I was able to accomplish with some of the best drivers in America, especially right here in Texas, Oklahoma, and this region here. Racing against these guys week in and week out that have been doing it their whole life, and I'm giving them a run for their money, and it's only my 4th season. And I'll be honest, I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because of the fact that they've been doing it their whole life. I feel like I have to catch up. So I push myself that much harder because of the fact that I constantly feel like I'm playing catch up to these guys, and here we are, and I've caught up. But the biggest downside to 2022 was the fact that towards the end of the season, we had a couple rainouts, and I wasn't able to make a couple of events. I ended up falling down to 13th in the nation. I was sitting 9th, and I missed a couple of key events because of rainouts, and didn't have the kind of ran out of funds towards the end of the season to be able to travel like I wanted to. And I missed a couple of events and fell down the point standing. So that was my biggest disappointment in 2022 for sure.
Gotcha. And you mentioned that you are originally from Texas, now living in Oklahoma. Talk about the tracks a little bit down there. Obviously, it's part of the country that myself, I'm not too familiar with in terms of racetracks, but as I've worked for Race Choice for almost a year now, and talking to you guys throughout the race season, I've kind of learned the tracks you guys have been racing at week in and week out. So did a little research on that, but there are some really cool tracks down there. So kind of what is your favorite? What tracks are you planning on getting to in 2023 that maybe you haven't in 2022?
Oh yeah, a huge favorite of mine is and always will be Lone Star Speedway. It's in Kilgore, Texas. It's right on Interstate 20, but ironically, it is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I actually made a TikTok video about it. It's actually up for sale this year, so it was a huge crusher for me. It actually almost brought me to tears, the fact that it was for sale, because that's a huge part of my childhood. And it's just another small piece of my relationship with my grandpa that I see slowly fading away. So I'm hoping someone jumps on with that. But Lone Star Speedway, it's a red dirt track. It reminds me a lot of the tracks in Oklahoma because of the red dirt that's there, the red clay. And there's a ton of 3/8 mile tracks, small and large 3/8. And there's such a huge variety. I mean, Elk City Motorsports Park, it's my local track now. It's in the town that I live in. A gentleman from California, Rod Farber, actually came in and reopened that track last season about halfway through the year. One of my best, and actually has become one of my favorite tracks as well. It fits my driving style so well, along with my equipment. Everything about my car is set up for a dry slick racetrack, and it is always dry slick. Then there's a special place in my heart, of course, for Longdale Speedway in Longdale, Oklahoma. It's where I got my first career start in anything racing, and it's a huge. It's listed as a 3/8, but I think that's just for insurance purposes because it is a big 3/8. I believe it has to be at least a half mile around the top, and it's one of those where you go in and you hold it to the floor and you just drive the crap out of it, and it's a blast to drive. I'll be honest, I don't have the motor to run with most guys there, but I did have quite a few top 10s there this last season. I finished 3rd in the heat race. I led the first 6 laps and broke a right front shock and still finished 3rd in the heat race. Longdale Speedway is a huge track, and it holds a special place for me. That, and of course, I love the history of racing. We actually have a doubleheader coming up this season at Enid Speedway. So it's in Enid, Oklahoma, and it's another red dirt track here. We're going to race Enid, run a complete show at Enid Speedway that morning, then load up and run a complete show at Longdale Speedway that night. So it's going to be a heck of a day, especially considering that I travel and I race by myself with no help. So it's going to be a test for sure to start the season off.
Yeah, no, and another thing too that I wanted to mention was TikTok, right? Your TikTok page is a huge part of what you do. I've seen you have, I think, over 13,000 followers over on TikTok, which is pretty awesome. I mean, it's definitely tough for some people to get some views, and I've kind of seen that you have thousands of views on your TikToks. Talk about that a little bit, how that helps you out, and how much you enjoy doing that, because I know for myself I enjoy doing that as well. So talk about that a little bit.
And TikTok, honestly, it's something I started because I was like, everybody's downloading this, I'll download it. And I started watching videos, and I was like, you know what? I'm funnier than most of these people. At least I think I am. And I started posting videos as well, and turns out I was right. A lot of people liked a lot of the really dumb stuff that I did, and a lot of the really heartfelt stuff that I did, and it's kind of just blown up over the last few years, and it's really been an amazing part of my career and helping build my career. I actually picked up some marketing partners from TikTok, and I do lives 2 to 3 times a week, and mention my marketing partners that are on board with me. That's another thing you guys will learn about me, and a lot of people already know, is that I don't use the word sponsor. Sponsor is a dirty word to me. It reminds me of Little League softball. I like working for people who decide to partner with me. So I think of it more as a partnership instead of a sponsorship. But with TikTok, it's unreal. It really is. It's led to so many things to assist with racing and in my personal life. It's been a real ordeal, and a lot of times, to be honest, it's a good place to just vent when you have these feelings that might be able to help somebody else with something they're going through. Absolutely. It's a great place to express that, and who knows, better than keeping it bottled up, it may actually help someone.
Right, and another thing too, that's definitely a great point, mentioning how, posting something maybe heartfelt that might help someone else out, that might, be kind of going through some of the same stuff as you. So that's a great point to bring up as well, and I love the platform of TikTok where you can post something and people can see what you post that aren't even following you. People kind of see stuff on their page that like the same stuff as you, and that's really cool about TikTok, and it's a huge way for racers, smaller racers like us who are trying to grow a little bit and trying to find, those marketing partners. So that's a great thing that you mentioned there. One thing I do want to mention, I did go on your TikTok. I kind of scrolled through it a little bit to learn a little bit about you before this interview.
Andrew's big on TikTok.
I am. I love TikTok. I love it. And one thing I did see is one of your pinned TikToks is that you have a show. Is that correct?
I do. It is still in production. It has been for a few years now. It was actually supposed to be released almost 2 years ago, but it has been pushed back so far because we had they ended up changing. I was with the Walla TV network, and they ended up changing production companies, and all of our original footage was all lost.
Wow.
So we basically had to start from scratch. All we had left was that promo there was actually all that survived the mass deleting of everything. So that was a little bit of a kick in the pants there, but we're working towards getting back to that and get that rocking and rolling again to debut on the Walla TV network there. I've been talking with Miss Karen Hawley. She's the CEO of the network, and she's been kind of keeping me on the loop and working through all that. And yeah, it is in the works, but it's taking a little while.
So how do you land something like that? I mean, that's pretty awesome. First and foremost, I mean, that's great to have something in the pipeline like that. Talk about like how you're kind of able to kind of land that a little bit.
Well, long story short, it was about 2 or 3 years ago. I actually made a sponsored post on Facebook, and a gentleman from Georgia happened to see it, and he wanted to represent me and introduce me to a lot of people. And we had kind of drifted apart there, and because the results weren't there. It was one of those deals. It was a business deal and all that. But anyway, we drifted apart, and he actually called me one day and said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to this lady." And he three-wayed us on the call, and it was Miss Karen Hawley. And she was actually from East Texas, the same area that I was from, and she now lives in Dallas, and she was starting up the Walla TV network. And she said that she wanted to do that, and they're going to start doing a lot of live actions, a lot of live production. We're talking to a few tracks right now. They're wanting to do live, like flag-to-flag coverage of the races, a lot like Flow and Dirt Vision and things like that do, except they're going to cover multiple different sports instead of just racing. And she's doing a lot of big things with the network. We're just waiting for the drop.
Yep.
But it was actually that was just how it came about. It's just making connections, and that's I've learned that not only in racing but in life, like connections are what build everything. I mean, especially in life. But something I've noticed, a lot of guys think that, I mean, if we're being honest, a lot of guys think they're going to go out and win races and advance to whatever they want to advance to, and that's not the reality we live in anymore. You have to be someone that's likable. There's so many different avenues, other than just winning races. I mean, that definitely helps, but there's so many different avenues that matter to people these days. And I don't know, I kind of, not toot my own horn, I kind of feel like the total package sometimes.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely cool. I mean, just by these past 10 or so 10 15 minutes, it's just it's like we are learning about your career so progressively, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So you obviously have an awesome backstory. A lot of stuff is looking up for you this year. So I don't think we touched on it before. How old are you, Chris?
I am 32. As of this last November, I turned 32.
Okay. So, and you've been racing how many years now?
Going into year 5.
Year 5. All right. So definitely a lot of experience. Andrew would agree with me that 5 years you could definitely learn a lot in racing.
Yeah, you can definitely learn a lot, and but there's always something else to learn too.
course.
So even guys that have been
Always.
racing for 20 years, there's always something still to be learned for sure. But like you said, you've been racing for now coming up to your 5th year, and it seems like you're hanging with these guys who have been racing for the 10, 15 years, 20 years, which is definitely something to be proud of. No question about it.
So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's one of those deals. Just like you guys know, I'm here at work right now in my truck. I can't show you the company; they have a strict social media policy. But in the off season, I work in the oil field. I work 7 days a week from November 1st until the middle of March when race season starts. That's 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. So there's always work that goes into it. It's not always race car work, and that's not just for me. That's for all the guys that I race with week in and week out. Like, they fight so hard to be able to their love for the sport is unreal. Whether they're competitive or they're guys like me that when I started there couldn't even sniff the spoiler of the guy in front of them, couldn't even get close enough, and it's so surreal to be in the position that I'm in.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. Like you said, working as hard as you can to do what you love, on the weekends there.
that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. You're kind of like that old school racer. It sounds like, you're just, working all the way through the winter just, to have a great season in the spring and the summer. So I know Joe and I absolutely respect that. That's
definitely
awesome to hear. You don't hear about that a lot, so that's definitely cool to hear for sure.
Yeah, especially in the dirt world too.
Right.
I mean, we talked to a few dirt racers, but obviously dirt is something that I've tried to get more involved with.
Yeah.
I know me and Andrew, like we pay attention to everything. As we've been doing these Race Choice Lives on Wednesdays, I'm sure maybe you've tuned into a few. We do a lot of studying on racing that you guys do, and all our Race Choice drivers all over the country. Obviously, New Smyrna is starting this weekend, Speed Week, so that's a big one in Florida. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But really cool to talk to different drivers from asphalt, dirt, and even karts. So
Right.
Definitely a lot of information taken in to put forward to the 2023 season. I know you must, talked about your grandfather a lot. Who is, the most to thank of continuing your racing career up to this point, and who do you got to thank for making this upcoming season possible?
Honestly, it's the guys at Howard Motorsports. I actually bought my first car from them 4 or 5 years ago, and they've become my family. His son Denver, Les Howard, and Les Howard's son Denver Howard. Denver runs USRA Modifieds now. His cousin Ryan Howard runs the USRA Limited Modifieds with myself. Brody Howard. All of the Howards. We have 6 cars spread across 3 different classes, and we all work together. It's an unreal feeling to be honest, to have a family like I never had. To be a part of something like that and have something like that my son can grow up in, and my wife is slowly learning to love. But with all that, I couldn't do what I do without the Howards. And of course, the Bazaar on 66, Elk City Motorsports Park, Dirt Dog Apparel, Fortner Oil, the AMSOIL dealer here that provides me with all my lubrication, all of that. There are tons and tons more. First Form Energy, First Form Nutrition. Have their energy drinks keep me alive out here in the oil field actually all the time. There are millions others, and they're going to get mad at me if I forget them, but I know you guys are on a time crunch. And but yeah, it's just there's so many people. It's they know who they are, and I'm sure I'll get a message later once they watch this, and they're like, "Oh, you forgot me," and I'll have to make a post. But it's a huge thanks actually to Elk City Motorsports Park that we have a shot at making one of the ARCA races here coming up in 2023.
That's awesome.
We're hoping to get a couple more. As of right now, we're funded for Bristol, And we're hoping, of course, with my dirt background, to be able to land a seat with DeCoin and Springfield, and that's my goal, is to get the track time there to eventually get approved for Daytona. And I want to go do the testing in a couple seasons, but I want to kind of work in reverse. I want to learn the cars before I jump right into Daytona.
That's awesome. And
DeCoin's in Illinois, right?
Yes, sir. They are both in Illinois. DeCoin and Springfield. They're both right there, and so that's what we're hoping for right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, we wish you the best of luck, man. I mean, this has been an awesome conversation with you.
Yep.
You know, we know you're over there at work, but it's great that you took some time out of your day to talk to us. You know, we over here at Race Choice really appreciate your support as always. We support you like you support us. So we just want to wish you the best of luck this upcoming year. The best of luck with some of the ARCA stuff coming up. Hopefully that works out well for you. We're definitely going to be rooting for you. Yeah, we really appreciate you being on here with us.
Before we let you go, did I hear that you have a son, Chris?
I do. He just turned 8 on the 19th of January.
All right. Are we thinking he's going to be a racer? Or?
Honestly, I think he's going to be a streamer. It seems to be he's been playing Call of Duty since he was 2. So he appears to be he has a pretty good aptitude for video games. If that's the route he chooses to take, I would be more than happy. But if he chooses to be a streamer also, I'll support him just the same.
Cool.
That's awesome, man. Great to hear. Thank you so much once again for being on our Driver Focus here.
And best of luck in 2023, man. And thank you for joining us today. We'll be watching you all season long, posting updates. So appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Oh, absolutely, guys. I love being part of the team. And by the way, that helmet is sick. That is the most comfortable helmet I've ever worn, and I'm so glad I went with you guys to get one.
You guys heard it. RaceChoice.com. Get your helmets. 2023 season is starting in Florida next week, so we're in full swing. So our Race Choice drivers will get them geared up.